Textile practices, when you see it in museum collections, they're often under this label of traditional arts. Very rarely does it acknowledge the original makers or the artisans. A lot of this is made by women and it's women's labour. So what you're seeing there is this sort of erasure of women's labour and women's artistry. The work Labours for Colour is this kind of small redress of that imbalance. A lot of it is shot on Nusa Penida, which is an island off the southeast coast of Bali. You know, it was once known as the island where political exiles will go from Bali. It's now known as a pilgrimage destination for Balinese Hindus, and it has this kind of interesting association with black magic. It also has really strong traditions of dance and then of textiles. I was working in one village of Tanglad with one family who are known for their cepuk style textile weaving. The film follows mostly the women in the family as they go about various stages of the cepuk process. So starting from the harvesting of certain plants that it's used in the dye, to the threading of the cotton and the final weaving stage, acknowledging women's labour and artistry within these textile traditions. The title speaks to the histories of that labour and the colour is so important. I think what was really interesting for me is, you know, seeing the way that the natural world and the environment is so much part of that process. When you see a piece of cloth made in this way, you realise that there are things from that environment that are actually embedded within its material. The way that the colour comes from the actual plants, the way that plants grow in particular soil. So much textile making is built around this attention to colour. Cepuk has a deep, dark, rusty red colour, and that comes from the root of the morinda plant. And the deeper the colour means months or even a year of repeated dyeing to get that colour. It's a very valuable cloth and quite difficult to make. It's a weft style ikat. Part of the design is already dyed into the weft threads before it gets threaded up. It's used a lot in rituals to protect the body that's made vulnerable in rites of passage. So marriage, coming of age ceremonies or death ceremonies. When you speak about traditional practices in Bali, actually they're also very contemporary. What's interesting for me is to encounter these in the museum context, and they're essentially kind of frozen in time, and how their meanings and their function changes. What was really interesting to work with the collection of Dr. John Yu was that this was a collection that wasn't in a museum, but in someone's home. John is a well-known public figure in Sydney, but is also really known for his incredible collection of Southeast Asian artefacts and textiles, predominantly Indonesian textiles. As you watch the film, you can sort of see these parallels that happen. There's this attention on people's hands, making the cepuk contrasted with shots of John's hands that are very still as he's seated and posed very deliberately. John was quite different as a collector because he really liked to engage with the objects he would collect. He would move them around, they'd be kind of on his kitchen table, he would use some of them, he'd wash the textiles that he collected. You know, they were also kind of functional for him as well. And it was this interesting moment in time as well because John was going to pass on the collection. In the exhibition of Labours for Colour, we also see two original textiles from Dr. Yu's collection. One is a version of cepuk from the 20th century, and the other one is a patolu design from India. They kind of speak of each other's origins, but also how they migrated from India over into Nusa Penida. I'm drawn to making art about Indonesian histories. It's exploring, for me, an ancestral lineage, and Balinese archival histories are told and continues to be told through this very Eurocentric framework. So a lot of my work is really rethinking about who gets to write our histories and who gets to hold and benefit from our archives.